Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Keith Galley, and in this video we're going to see how we can build, share, and deploy a Shiny for Python application within 20 minutes. So if you're not familiar with Shiny for Python, it is a framework that allows us to build web applications in Python that are just very easy to spin up, they're efficient, and they really allow us to build everything from the simplest dashboard to full-fledged complex web apps. To get started, I recommend checking out the link in the description, which will bring you to this homepage that you see here. One thing that I think is worth just mentioning real quick is that there's this gallery that has all sorts of different projects that you can build in Shiny. A common project you might want to build is a dashboard. So here we see a restaurant tipping dashboard. It's interactive. I can toggle these different things. I can uncheck dinner. And we can see how everything changes. We can also build even more complex things, such as this Super Zip Explorer that looks at all of the zip codes in the United States, and it kind of ranks them and evaluates them on these different criteria that you see over here on the right side. So if I zoom in, the area kind of updates, and we can see that, like, if I wanted to, let's say, zoom in on this area of Philadelphia, I can see these different zip codes, and then I can even go into this Data Explorer and kind of evaluate them a little bit more, I guess, concretely. In this video series, we're going to specifically be working on building a dashboard that looks kind of like this. It's going to be on sales data, but we'll focus on something very simple for this first video just to get started. On this same homepage, there's another area you can go to, which is Playground, where we can start seeing code samples and actually really getting started super quickly. So go to the Playground. Again, links are in the description. And the first thing we see is just like a toggle bar here that is using Shiny. As we see, as we update this toggle, we see that it is doing n times 2, so 52, 104. It's interactive, cool. You probably want to do something a little bit more complex than that. So next we can look at like apps with plots. Same type of, scroll bar, or what do you call this? Toggle bar? Input slider, I guess we'll use the actual name. And we can see that the graph updates. And as you go down, you can get into very complex things like even building a Wordle app via Shiny. Really cool stuff. I recommend exploring these different apps that you can use. You can use Plotly, Altair, any of your favorite Python graphing libraries. But we'll start with this app with a plot. This is cool, but it's just random data. So kind of a starting point that I recommend is using this playground and actually building something that might be meaningful to you. Also linked in the description is a GitHub repo, and in that repo we can access some just simple CSV data. So this is students, and it's some test scores on a random exam. So one way that I might spin up a Shiny app really quickly is I might take this data, so I'll call this test scores.csv. I'll paste it in, and you can add files right here in this little playground area. I'll save that. And then I can actually reference that data by doing something like df equals, let's do a couple things. We're going to want to import pandas probably. Import pandas as PD. We'll probably want to be able to access this easier using the pathlib. So pathlib import path. And I can access this file by doing file path equals path file. So this is the file we're currently editing, .parent, so it's the parent directory. And then I can simply do test scores.csv. And then I can load this file in with pandas by doing pd.read csv file path. And then instead of this histogram here, we can very easily have our data be set to test scores equals df. And then if we looked at that, the column was score, df score. Maybe we do even dot values, pass in the test scores, and we're going to just rerun this application. Oh, sorry. Kind of a special syntax here. Test scores.csv, and we can see that this is a the data from our test scores, and we can toggle the number of bins in our histogram very easily. You can see it kind of is a normal-ish distribution around, I would say, 80. Probably get a little bit more granularity there, with some people performing really well, and then as we zoom out, some people performing very much not as well. One really cool thing we can do here with Shiny is we can share this actual editor here in this application. So I'm going to share the application URL. I'll open up a new tab, paste that in. And in this URL, actually everything that we have saved is already encoded. So you can just share this link. That's the easiest way to share a Shiny application quickly. You could also have shared the actual editor URL. One caveat here is I would just be careful to share anything that's like sensitive data. There was no actual names or anything involved in this test scores data frame, so I'm fine sharing it. It would probably be fine for a teacher to share it as long as it's been anonymized, but just kind of things to think about when you're sharing a link that has all your kind of code right there in the URL. Cool, that's a great starting point. Next, let's build something a little bit more, I guess, robust, or work our way up to something more robust. GitHub link is in the description. We're going to take this repo. We're going to clone it locally. So go ahead and open up a terminal window. I'm going to go into my code directory, and we can get this code locally by doing something like git clone and then pasting in that link. I already have this locally, so I'm going to skip this step. But we then would have a Shiny Python projects file here. And my next recommendation is to create a virtual Python environment to get all of the dependencies you need to run Shiny locally. So to do that, I'm going to run this command, which will create a virtual environment called Shiny in my ends folder. And then I can activate that by doing source ends shiny bin activate. If you don't understand what I'm doing here with this virtual environment, don't worry too much about it. A lot of these steps will work without necessarily doing this. It's just good practice to have a virtual environment like this. And then finally, in this repo, there is a requirements.txt file. So to get all of the Python dependencies, we're going to want to do a pip3 or pip, depending on what version you have, install -r requirements.txt, and that should install everything in our virtual environment. If you're curious what was in that requirements.txt, it's just the Python libraries that we'll need for these tutorials in this series. You can add more as you see fit. The important ones really are Shiny and Shiny widgets. I would say those are the most important, and maybe actually any widget as well. Cool, we have that. Next, use your code editor of choice. I personally like to use Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code and open up this repo within my Visual Studio Code. So open. It's in code, Shiny Python projects. Go ahead and open that. And we're going to go into this sales folder. I'm going to create a new file there, and we'll call it app.py. Okay. If you're using Visual Studio Code, there's a couple things I recommend. If you do Command-Shift-P, if you're on a Mac, you can select your interpreter, and you can select that Shiny virtual environment we just set up. And also, the best way to run Shiny apps locally with Visual Studio Code is to go ahead and go to the extensions and look up Shiny. Go ahead and install this. Finally, we can go back to our app. And really, a good starting point is just to go ahead and copy that code that we saw in the Shiny examples. Maybe we'll do something a little bit different. Maybe let's do like a plotly plot. Here we have some plotly graphs. I'm going to go ahead and copy this code. I'm going to paste it into my app. And a great check is, does this work? So we should be able to run this right away, and it should work. So we can click once you have the extension installed, you can click this button here, and we see that the application does work. Cool. And this fillable option lets it kind of extend to fill the screen. If you're not using Visual Studio Code, there's other ways to run this. You can go ahead and do the following from your command line. So we are in the sales folder, and we can run something like Shiny run -jas reload launch browser our app we're in the app directory, so we can just do app.py, and we can go ahead and run this. I got this command from the Shiny docs, which are also linked in the description. And as you can see, it popped up on my other monitor, but we have our little interactive Plotly graph here running. But let's make this a little bit more custom to us. Let's add some extra features and whatnot. So let's look at the docs. And we're using Shiny Express specifically. So Shiny Express Python. I recommend going to components. We can see all these different things we can use. You also might want to check out like layouts. A lot of interesting things here. And templates also have a lot of cool stuff that you can do and kind of get off the ground running with. And if you click on these, I'll show you exactly how to do it. But we'll specifically look at our reference. We can start by actually filling in a title that's more applicable. So we can say sales dashboard video 1 of 5. Save that. Another thing we'll probably want to do is edit our tab here, what shows up if you launch this in the browser. So we might have that be the same thing. I recommend going to the documentation to see this type of stuff. So looking at the documentation for the page ops that we're playing with, we see that the title here, and we also, by doing that, it defaults the window title, which is this little tab thing we're seeing here, to whatever the title is. So I'm happy with that within our app. Let's maybe add, let's make this custom to our data. So a good starting point with our data is we can go to the examples. We can see someone read a CSV. Let's just copy this. You can look at this code as you see fit, but we're going to paste this in. Now we have our data frame, and we need to import some libraries and make some fixes. So import pandas as PD. We're going to need to import reactive specifically. So maybe we just copy in what the imports they had there too. And then let's just clean this up. So delete this. Add this. Move this to the top. Doesn't really matter where this is positioned. And this is duplicate, right? I guess we might want to have render. Cool. And let's make a custom graph that's specific to our sales data. So this should be data/sales CSV. This will be pd.read CSV. And then finally, we can make something a little bit different here. So how would we do df equals the data, our sales data, and we'll set this to df. We don't want a histogram. Let's do a bar chart. X will be if you look at our sales data, product. And the Y data will be the number sold. So we'll probably have to do some processing on this. We'll do df.group by product dot count. Let's see this again. A good starting point is to render a data frame. See what's in our data frame. And maybe we just group by the product and we aggregate the quantity ordered. So we get, let's make a graph of the most popular products. So group by product. Get the quantity ordered, and we're going to could do the count. We could also do n largest, just take 5, let's say. That'll be our new top sales, we'll call this. And then finally, this will be top sales product, and we might have to reset the index. Y will be quantity ordered. And let's see what this gives us. Comment out this data frame for now. Notice I missed something small here. I actually wanted to sum the quantity ordered and then take the 5 largest. This should update my chart. That's what I'm expecting. Cool. And then I think as a last thing that we might want to just see real quick, I could very easily add some sort of input slider or input numeric. How about call this n, label it number of items. We'll give it a default value of 5, but we'll say the range can be from 1 to 20. And one thing that's cool that you can do with Shiny is that I can immediately, we'll see that this should pop up. I'll do min equals 0, max equals 20. We can increase this number. And then finally, one thing that's cool is that we could replace this 5 with the value. And we grab the value by doing input that we imported here. And then this is the variable name. So in this case, it's n. So input.n will then allow us to showcase a specific number of items in our chart. And as we can see, as I increase this, we see more and more items. Cool. So that's a basic app that was built using Shiny for Python. So now, next step finally is how could we deploy this to have a link that anyone could access? Quick side note, the best way to deploy will depend on your Shiny app and who you want to share it with. For example, if data security and authentication are top of mind for you, or you work in a larger organization, you might want to consider some of the professional POSIT options, such as POSIT Connect, that can be found under self-hosted deployments. Alternatively, if you're just getting started and building a small public Shiny app, Shinylive or shinyapps.io are great options. You can find all the information under the deploy button here on the homepage. For now, we're going to go to shinyapps.io and deploy there. You'll want to log in, create an account if you don't have one, sign up with Google quick. So I'm creating an account on shinyapps.io. Maybe we'll call this like Keith Shiny. I already have an account, so this is kind of just to show you the process you'll follow. Follow these steps. So you want to set up RS Connect on your account, and we probably will want to start with Python. Install this. That should be included in the pip, the requirements.txt. You want to add this once you've done that, and then you can deploy using this command. Again, I already have an account that's separate from this one, so I'll be using that for the purpose of this. I just wanted to show you those steps. So we can go ahead. We're in our sales folder. We have our app.py. We're going to paste in that command we just saw. It will know to find the app, so I'm going to just do / because we're already in that folder. The name, it's actually, my account is Keith Galley, and then we give this a title. The title we'll say is Sales Video 1. If I run this command, we see that it is building, installing files. We also see that we got this warning about the requirements.txt file not being in that repo. So it actually might be the best play to have this requirements.txt and actually put it directly in the sales folder and just have a requirements.txt in each of the projects that we're building. minute detail, but installing files. Basically the requirements.txt lets us deploy this and lets Shiny know what our requirements are when we deploy this to the cloud. And if we go to that Shiny apps, shinyapps.io, go to our account, we'll see that this new application that we just built is being deployed. Oh no. I think it got annoyed because of not having the requirements.txt. So I'm going to try this one more time. You're allowed 5 free applications. And then you can upgrade your account to always access more applications. So let's try that command again. And we now have our requirements.txt in that repo. And we can see that it's now deploying. It's gone through the necessary installation steps, and it is deploying our instance. And look at that. We now have our sales dashboard right here online. You can share this link. You can edit this, ready to go. So, hey, we built this application. We shared it both with the URL using that student test score data, and then we also saw how we could actually deploy this to a web URL with our more sophisticated sales dashboard start. In the next videos in this series, we will build off of this. We will really drill into this reactive components and what we can do with these reactive components. We'll see how we can stylize our dashboards to make them way more interesting and way more pretty. And we'll work on some other features, seeing how we can combine many different types of plots, many different types of visuals to make this a really impressive looking application. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to throw this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. The next video in this series will be up in the next 2 weeks. Woo!